All right. Okay, we're live. Let's wait for a few more people to show up. Test the mics. Fix the keeper. All that good stuff. It's live. All right. Okay. Da-da-da. Start mode. All right. Let's see. All right, guys. Okay. Hi, Rosalie. Ramesh. Sarah. Chazakim V'Ruchim. Okay. All right. We're going to start in 20 seconds. Just need to confirm that the sound is good. Sound good? Yeah, sounds good. All right. Very good. B'Shem Hashem na'aseh v'natzliach, shiur Torah, b'ruchim aba'im. We're back here with another Stump the Rabbi, surprise Stump the Rabbi that we, on one hand, we're very happy to do. And certainly it's always good to learn more Torah, teach more Torah. But at the same token, we have a major situation that's happening, something that is certainly hitting close to home. Our own very dear Rabbi Ephraim and his Rabbanit have been in the hospital with their young 2-year-old daughter throughout the day today, where unfortunately the 2-year-old has a very rare situation that's happened, and now the doctors are obviously, she's connected to all the tubes, and the doctors are debating whether to have a surgery or not. And of course, anyone can just imagine the horror that any parent would go through, and even contemplating this whole situation and having to have a surgery for a 2-year-old baby. So this shiur tonight is going to be for the refuah shlema for Talia bat Sarah, the very dear daughter of our own very dear Rabbi Ephraim, and also for the refuah shlema for Sarah bat Anat, Rabbi Ephraim ben Shulamit, Rabbanit Sarah bat Anat, Avi Mori David ben Nisriya, Imi Morati Doris bat Jora. And also, today I actually wrote it, but it disappeared to me again. This is much unbelievable. Hold on, but here we go. As lehavdil, but as promised, this shiur is also going to be for a dear sponsor and for the Lui Nishmat of Giveret Perel Sliva Bat Osher Yitzchak. May HaKadosh Baruch Hu elevate her neshama and bless all of us that are learning HaKadosh Baruch Hu's Torah and applying it to our lives. So when I thought about what was happening, and it's of course the situation around the world is certainly getting more and more difficult by the day. Every day, it seems like the decree, the new decree is worse than yesterday's decree, which certainly reminds us of the klalot of Parashat Bechukotayim, Parashat Kitavo, that Kadosh Baruch Hu told us that if we don't go in the way of his Torah, and we treat it as if it's a something that unfortunately is not the priority number one. Ve'alachti mimi bekeri, ve'alachti imachem bechamat keri. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, if you go with me with happenstance, where you just treat the Torah as if it's a bunch of coincidences and really not everything is led by the divine hand 3,000 years ago, just as much as it is today, just as much as it was 3,000 years ago, then HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells us about a bunch of different curses. And of course, the horrible parts of the curses, Baruch HaShem, are not here, but certainly it looks like they're literally around the corner. And whether it's some of the allies that Israel had and even has until now, before this war began on October 7th, the allies are unfortunately making an about face, including the United States, a place that certainly helped many Jews live a peaceful life over the last several decades since World War II. But now has obviously become a much more, difficult place for many of us. And I'm not talking about just the religious aspect of it. That was already difficult 80 years ago. I'm talking about, the safety aspect of it, the anti-Semitic part of it, and most importantly, what's happening and how anti-Semitism has become a standard, topic of discussion in practically every coffee house, every bar, every newsreel, every article, every tweet. It's constant anti-Semitism coming from all places, and unfortunately, some of the Jews, and especially some of the Jewish leaders out there, the political ones, or the ones that pretend to be politicians, still have this notion that if we, make our voice heard, that never again, or if we have a protest, or the most recent, if we have a digital signing campaign where a bunch of people sign that they don't like what's happening, they want the hostages released, they want anti-Semitism to stop, and all types of other requests from a genie bottle, they think that somehow that's going to change things. Somehow that's going to make the modern day Nazi, the modern day terrorist, suddenly stop hating Jews and not say anything bad about them. It seems to me that this ideology is not far off in delusion than the ideology of the anti-Semites themselves. Both are extreme delusional stages, but nonetheless, we have a situation happening. We have a war. We have a world that has turned against us. And if that's not bad enough, as the prophet says, that your conquerors, your destroyers will come from within you. And of course, our biggest destroyers are ourselves. And we saw that the Israeli government, Zionist anti-Torah government that it is, and it always has been, has taken the next step in trying to make it a law to stop any type of financial assistance to the religious community, yeshivot. Now, this whole topic in itself is one big delusion and one big lie. But the fact that it hit the headlines that the government has taken the war against the Torah a step higher at a time of war clearly shows how little they believe in the Torah, how little they believe in God, how much they believe in their own powers, in their own weapons, in their own strengths. And unfortunately, this is the recipe for a disaster. Every single war that Am Yisrael has fought throughout history, and I'm not talking about the land of Israel that's ruled by a bunch of Zionists that are anti-Torah. I'm talking about the nation of Israel. If you look at the Torah, every single war that we ever won was only because HaKadosh Baruch Hu, allowed us to win it. And it was only because of the Holy Torah that we learned. It was only because of the Holy Torah that we kept. All of the wars that Yeshua ben Nun won, 31 different nations were defeated by Yeshua ben Nun and Am Yisrael. 31 different nations. We weren't a nation of fighters. We weren't warriors. We weren't, gladiators. We were, slaves, sons of slaves. And these slaves, sons of slaves, but yet the sons and daughters of God won this war. And of course, not a single woman went to war. There's no female soldiers in a Jewish army. There's only female soldiers in an anti-Jewish army, like we have today. But nonetheless, we won the wars with Yeshua ben Nun. David HaMelech won the wars because of the Torah. The other kings that we had that won wars against Amalek, against the Philistines, was only because of the Torah. In fact, even the wars that the modern day Israel won were literally miraculous events, one miracle after another, just for the sake of protecting the nation of the Torah, not to protect the Zionists, not to protect the anti-Torah personalities. And instead of people continuing to do what they did the day after October 7th, which is after October 7th, all of a sudden everybody wanted to get closer to God. Everyone wanted to do tshuva, and many people did do tshuva because they realized how helpless we are if HaShem does not protect us even for a matter of a few hours. All of the armies and the bombs and the weapons and the planes and the technology in the world cannot help us. If not for HaKadosh Baruch Hu making those things work, making those things help us. So many people started doing tshuva. But unfortunately, the Yetzer Hara forces people to have a priority on their short-term memory. And in so many words, or better said, makes everybody forget all of what happened on October 7th and gets them back to the same war that we were fighting against the Torah, or they were fighting against the Torah, well, we were fighting for the sake of the Torah, on October 6th. Meaning, if you look at what happened in Israel, the state, on October 6th, there was a declaration of war against the Torah by the government, doing everything possible to go against the religious community, in some cases even making comments very similar or even identical to the comments that were made by Adolf Hitler and his supporters before they murdered us. Literally, the protests against the Torah, against the religious community, were something that we only saw by anti-Semites. October 7th, everything changed. Suddenly, people wanted to become religious. Suddenly, people said Shema Yisrael. Suddenly, people started realizing we need God. But that didn't last for long, because the war against the Torah picked up its weapons again, and the court decided that they want to proceed with defunding the government assistance that goes to the religious Jewish schools. They don't want to defund the programs in the secular schools that are for making plays or grooming horses, teaching young kids how to do all types of things that are useless in actual life. No, those billions of dollars or billions of shekels, they're good. They're good. But the few dollars that go to the yeshivot, that we can't stand. Why? Because according to the perception they want people to believe, the religious people don't go to the army. They don't fight in battle. And unfortunately, there are many what you call religious Zionists, people that claim to be religious, but also Zionists at the same time. Some even call themselves rabbis, that have actually supported this claim, where they said, listen, there was one clown rabbi that Rabbi Ephraim spoke against recently, that said, why is it that these Haredi, Orthodox Jews are not going to the army and not worried that about their kids dying, while I'm worried about my kids dying? Wait, so I don't understand. You're bothered by the fact that another parent is not worried about their kids dying? That's what wakes you up at night? And you call yourself religious? You call yourself a fellow Jew? Ay, ay, ay. Rabotai Karim, the Yetzirah is very, very active, as our dear friend Vimesh always says. And the problem is, Rabotai, most people don't realize that this whole thing of religious people in the army is one of the biggest lies in modern day Israeli politics and news. Because if you actually look at the percentage of religious Jews that go to the army and actually and fight, it's very, very different than what people say. In fact, the vast majority of people that go to the army never actually go to battle. They go to the kitchen, they become doctors, computer programmers, they do all types of things for the army. The army doesn't just need fighters. But for some reason or another, they give you the perception that if you're in the army, you're going to battle, you're going to be in the middle of ISIS and Hamas together, which is a complete lie. So, everybody said, oh, he joins the army, therefore he's his life is on the line. What is life is on the line? He just cut some potatoes. What life is on the line? With all due respect, we appreciate every soldier, that whether he's cutting potatoes or he's shooting at terrorists. It's obviously everything is needed. But to say that the life is not on the line is not exactly true. It's not always on the line. If you're not exactly in the front lines, then your life is not on the line any more than a civilian that is working at some restaurant. So the truth is that even if the religious people joined the army, it wouldn't change anything. How do we know? Because we saw it. We see it. Many have joined the army, not just in the recent few months, but even over the last several years. But when those people, those very same soldiers, go back home and put back their religious clothing on to go to synagogue, they're still mocked, they're still hated. Some of them are still literally, they fight against them because it has nothing to do with the army. And the point being is that all of the people that actually want to know the truth of what's happening from the perspective of Torah know that all of this has nothing to do with the army. It all has to do with the war against the Torah. And that's what our prophets have told us time and time again, that before Mashiach comes, the lies are going to be the dominant statements out there, whether it's in the media or in the local community, whether it's going to be by leadership at the top of the government or leadership even in smaller cities, leadership in the Jewish country, leadership in the non-Jewish places. The reality is that lies will become the dominant force. The world of lies will be at its peak, at its climax. And the only people that will have any type of comfort, any type of assurance that everything will be okay are those that cleave themselves to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But that doesn't mean that it will be easy. In fact, the most difficult times of our lives are ahead of us and not behind us. So how does one deal with the most difficult times in life? Now I know you have a lot of questions, and I'm going to leave you plenty of room to ask questions, but we want to answer these questions. We have to answer, how do we deal with these difficult times? You have a government for a so-called Jewish country that's against Judaism. You have friends that are supporting the enemies. You have fellow Jews that are actually going against Judaism. Some even to the extent of becoming self-hating Jews. There's so much confusion, so much lies, so much animosity. How do you deal with all of this? On top of the problems each and every one of us already has in their community and even in their household. Some people are struggling to make it through the week because of the limited financial resources that they have. Some are having a difficult time dealing with the day just because of all the problems they have. Whether it's health issues, marriage issues, issues with the children. Certainly having a child in a hospital and unfortunately in front of a emergency surgery is never something that anybody wants to ever deal with. It's never something anyone is prepared for from the secular perspective. But the Holy Torah tells us that when we cleave to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, everything will turn out to be good. As Shlomo HaMelech says, Aboteach beHaShem chesed yesovevenu. Someone who has bitachon, has confidence in God, kindness will surround him. It doesn't say that there will not be difficulty. Avraham Avinu had difficulty, to say the least. Yitzchak Avinu had difficulty, to say the least. Yaakov Avinu had difficulty. Moshe Rabbeinu had difficulty. All of the righteous people, David HaMelech had difficulty. Everyone has difficulty. Life is supposed to be difficult. But the purpose of the Torah is to give that difficulty a value. And when a person does not understand that, then their life becomes just one long suffering. Now, one of the things we talked about last night is the importance of thanking God. Now, what does thanking God have to do with suffering? The Gemara in Masechet Brachot, and this was paskin d'alacha by the Rambam and the Shulchan Aruch, and across the board, a Jew is supposed to and obligated to thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu both for what's a blessing as well as what seems to be like a curse. The difficulty and the salvation both require the same blessing. Now, of course, for a person to get to a point where they're blessing HaShem for the difficulty certainly takes time. So while we're not necessarily all there yet, we all know that at the very least we can't be ungrateful and not bless HaShem through the good things. Especially after what we learned last night, that when somebody doesn't bless HaShem, it literally can turn the blessing into a curse. It literally can turn life into a curse, because when someone doesn't bless HaShem and is too focused on complaining, that shows lack of gratitude, which is literally one of the top few things that HaKadosh Baruch Hu hates more than anything else. It's literally up there with idol worship. Lack of gratitude is despised by God. But a person can say, no, I thank HaShem, but, only for the good times, only for the good things. The bad things are not there yet. So even if we put this up for the test, we can actually see if we're really blessing HaShem properly. Now, the Chachamim Paskin Halacha and Shulchan Aruch, and Rabbi Yitzchak Yosef Sheichye writes in his Yalkut Yosef that it's halacha that when you make a blessing, whether it's a blessing that's part of your prayer in the morning, in the afternoon, or at night, or it's the blessing of after you ate, the Birkat HaMazon, or it's a very short, simple blessing before you eat an apple. You are not allowed to do anything else while you're making a blessing, such as your work, type something, point to somebody of some direction you need them to go. You're not allowed to do anything other than bless. Even more so, you're not allowed to even think of anything else other than the blessing itself. A person can say, whoa, not think, whoa, not do, I can understand, but I can do two things at once. No, you're not understanding. Years ago, about 200 years ago, there was a person by the name of Reb Bunim. Reb Bunim worked in the Jewish community, Chevra Kadisha, cemetery. He would bury all the Jews that died. And Reb Bunim, like anyone else that does this holy work, got to see a few things that the average person does not see. And he actually wrote one of his experiences down in order to help people realize what's really happening. He says that one day he comes back from work in the cemetery and he decided it was night, he wanted to learn a little Torah, and he went to the synagogue. But as he got closer and closer to the synagogue, he saw that there was an unusual looking person that was sitting in front of the synagogue. And this person wasn't just unusual looking, had unusual light, but also had some type of crown made of all types of leaves and flowers. Reb Bunim has seen some strange thing in his life and he was afraid that this was some type of demon. So he walked slowly as he approached it to try to see if he could recognize the face. As he got closer and closer, he became more and more amazed that he recognizes the face. This was the face of the Gabbai of the Bet Knesset that Reb Bunim buried just a couple of weeks before. And Reb Bunim says to him, how are you here? I just buried you. And the Gabbai that came from the world of truth says to him, no, I know you buried me, but I'm visiting the synagogue since I spent so much of my life here. I get permission to come see how the synagogue is doing. And he says, oh, so wow, if you're getting permission to come visit, you must be doing well in the world of truth. How did you fare in your judgment? He said, oh, I'm doing very well. They put me in a very nice place in Gan Eden. Reb Bunim said to him, well, with all due respect, you aren't exactly the biggest Torah scholar and you're a fairly simple Jew. How did you get such favorable judgment? The Gabbai says to him, it's because although I didn't know a lot of Torah, although I wasn't a big Torah scholar, I did spend a lot of effort to make sure that every one of my blessings, whether it was during prayer or it was on a simple apple, I would slowly say the prayer and think about HaShem during that prayer, during that blessing. So when I got up to Shamayim, I had an extraordinary account. And as Rav Tzadka says, where a person that knows that David HaMelech decreed that we have to make 100 blessings per day could simply do the math. 100 blessings per day is 3,000 blessings per month. 3,000 blessings per month, that means you have 36,000 blessings per year. 36,000 blessings per year after 70 years is approximately 2.52 million blessings. That means that a person arrives in Shamayim and is shown 2.5 million blessings. Each one of them creates an angel. Each one of them is an extraordinary reward. Unless Rav Tzadka says that blessing was without intention. That blessing was something you cared less about. That blessing was something you mumbled. That blessing was something that you did in a forbidden way, such as you weren't even thinking about it. You were busy doing something else. Then, instead of coming up to the Beit Din of heaven and being shown 2.5 million blessings that will account to your favor, they will show that person those 2.5 million blessings getting thrown into the garbage one after another, as each and every single one of them is inspected. And when they see that you are tying your shoes here and fixing the motorcycle there and having a conversation there and looking somewhere else there, having inappropriate thoughts there, all during the blessings, Rav Tzadka says each one of those blessings becomes like a Baal Mum. What's a Baal Mum? A deformed. Each angel that you created is missing parts, missing arms, missing legs, missing wings. The blessings go into the garbage. The blessings turn into a judgment instead. Instead of a defendant, it turns into a prosecutor. So Rabbunim says that this Gabbai came up to Shamayim and he had millions of blessings accounting to his favor. And that in itself put him in an extraordinary place in heaven. And then Rabbunim says to him, well, it's great to hear, but can you please answer one question that I have aside from this? He said, sure. What's with the crown of flowers and leaves? The Gabbai says to him, after they gave me permission to come visit the synagogue, in this world, they told me, listen, now that you've seen and smelled the beauty of Gan Eden, take this, put this on your head, because the sins of the world that you came from are so disgusting that you're not going to be able to handle it. So take with you some of the flowers and the leaves of heaven to protect you from the spiritual stench that comes from the sins of this world. So I wear this crown as protection. This, Rabbunim said, should wake up any person that has even a little bit of Yirat Shamayim. Now, on the other hand, the Yalkut Yosef also brings another story. This story is also about blessings. In fact, this story is a story that many Chachamim would shake when they heard it. The prophet Isaiah, in chapter 29, verse 13, warns Am Yisrael that when they cannot show God even the basic minimum of gratitude, that this in itself brings punishment. This in itself increases the evil decrees. It gives power to the evil. Those that are fighting against the Torah will become more powerful over you. And the prophet says that in their mouths, in their lips, they honored me, but in their hearts they were far away from me. They made the blessings, came out of their mouth, but their heart was away from me during that blessing, during that time that they were supposed to exalt my name, show appreciation, show a recognition. Their minds were elsewhere. The prophet Isaiah says this empowers the powers of evil, the powers that you don't want to exist in the world. And he says there was one example that happened years ago where one of the members of the community came into the shul sweating profusely and literally looked sick. They asked him what happened. He said, I had a dream and I need to tell you about this dream. Everyone paid attention. What kind of dream? You have to make a public statement about. He said, you know that family member that died a few years ago? He said, yeah, sure. We all said Kaddish. We all said, yeah. Well, he came to my dream last night. And he looked horrible. He died young. And I figured that would be good for him. He'll go to heaven. But when he came to me in my dream, he looked terrible. And I asked him, how is your condition in the world of truth, in heaven? He said, what heaven? No heaven. Every single day, they beat me profusely. They beat me endlessly, every single day. I said, why? Why do I beat you every day? He said, right now, the reason I'm being beaten so far is because of my blessings. I haven't paid for all of the other sins yet. I'm just dealing with the blessings so far. Why? You didn't make any blessings? He goes, no, I did. I did make blessings. But every day I receive severe punishment since I was not careful to make blessings with proper concentration before and after eating. And as they beat me, they berate me, saying, you ate and drank only for your own pleasure. There you had intention, but to make the blessing, no intention. And they keep beating me every day because of it. So I told them, yeah, but isn't it true that the maximum punishment is only 12 months? It's been much longer than 12 months, and they're still punishing you? The dead man told them, what 12 months? What are you talking about 12 months? The first 12 months I was getting even worse beatings than I'm getting right now. And I'm not even finished. We're just dealing with the beatings for the blessings not having said in the proper way. This, Rabotai, was written 600 years ago in Sefer Hasidim. Or maybe more, 700 years ago. And the Yalkut Yosef brings it in Ilchot Brachot during the first chapter. Rabotai Yekarim, what does having the proper blessings have to do with surviving difficult times? When a person understands what the source of all the blessings are, who the source is, where everything comes from, it's much easier to understand where all the difficulty comes from also. Because even the difficulty is also something that can turn into a blessing. As we saw in the story of Purim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu provides the cure before the ailment. In the beginning, it seemed like the terrible situation with Esther was a national tragedy. Taking a Bat Israel that was married nonetheless to Mordechai and having her marry some non-Jewish king, how could this be any good? This was one of the ways that Hashem brought salvation. Having Mordechai save the king by discovering two people that were his servants that wanted to kill the king, but yet get no recognition for it for years. Years without recognition. He saved the king from being assassinated. Imagine what kind of reward a person would get in today's world if he jumped in front of a bullet for the king, for the president, in front of some billionaire. If somebody tried to kill a billionaire and one of his assistants jumped in front of the bullets, imagine how much he would get. Here you have Mordechai save the king from something he didn't even know existed, but get no recognition. It looked like this was a curse. But this again was also part of the way that Hashem brought salvation, where it was discovered and recognized at the right time and at the right place. Meaning that when a person understands the source of all blessings, they also know that even the curses can turn into blessings if we have confidence in Hashem. Now, when a person looked at the situation right now, whether it's the national situation of anti-Semitism, or it's our own people's situation where it's a war against the Torah, or individual situations like what's happening to our own very dear and beloved Rav Ephraim and his dear Rabbanit, where their 2-year-old daughter is in a hospital requiring a miracle. What do you do? How do you survive these difficult times? When Rabbi Ephraim told me about this situation, certainly this is not an easy thing, but never lost his cool, never lost his composure, never lost his way, and in fact, always knew exactly what's necessary. What's necessary? If we want more salvation, we need to produce more Torah. More Torah, more mitzvot, more chesed, more tzedakah, more good deeds according to the Torah will produce more salvation. When HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives us difficulty, it's simply because he's trying to get our attention and he's demanding from us to pick up the volume on our Torah observance, on our mitzvah fulfillment, to have more kavanah, more intention, more focus when we're saying thank you, more focus when we're praying to him, more focus when we are actually making a blessing, more time dedicated to the Torah, less confidence in our own individual abilities, and more reliance on Hashem, and acknowledgement that He and only He can save us from all of our enemies. Money will not help us, weapons will not help us, allies will not help us. No one will help us other than HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And if we want HaKadosh Baruch Hu to help us during these trying times, against the anti-Semitism, against the worldwide confusion, against the literal war against the Torah by our so-called leaders of the government of Israel, or we want more salvation even in our own individual circumstances, whether it be health issues, health crises, monetary problems, loneliness, marriage issues, whatever it is. If you want God to do more for you, show Him that you are doing more of His Torah for yourself. Show Him that you recognize that He and only He is the source of all salvation. How? Learn more Torah. Do more of what the Torah says, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu will do the rest. Just like He told Moshe Rabbeinu. When Moshe Rabbeinu told him, I can't make this menorah out of a single nugget of gold. It's just not possible for me. It's not possible for any human being to mold gold into this 3-ton worth of gold of a menorah and make it beautiful and pretty with flowers and buttons. It's not possible for me. It's not possible for me to pick up this entire Mishkan when 600,000 men were not able to do it. It's not possible for me. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, I know what's possible for you. I know what's possible for you. I'm not asking what's possible for you. I'm asking you to go and show that you believe in me. How? Follow what I say. Put your hands on that Mishkan. I'll do the rest. Throw that gold into the fire. I'll do the rest. Open the Torah and start saying the words of the Torah. I'll give you the words. Give people the opportunity to do what Torah says, and I'll do the rest to get them to watch, to get them to listen, and BeEzrat HaShem to get them to do tshuva. You do your part, I'll do the rest. If we want extra salvation, Rabotai Kareem, extra success, we need to increase more Torah, more mitzvot. This was the reason why Ephraim told me, if we want more, prayer is not enough because we're already doing it. Learning was not enough because we're already doing it. Teaching was not enough because we're already doing it. We need to do more. Do you have a shiur scheduled today? I said, no, never. I don't have shiurim on Thursday. Perfect. Do a shiur today. Why? It's more. Certainly there's people that have questions. Maybe they can't wait until next week. Certainly there are people that want to learn. Maybe they don't have something else to learn. Certainly there are people that want to get closer to HaShem now. So let's go teach them now. And this is why we're here today, Rabotai. We need HaShem more than ever in these difficult times. And we ask each and every single one of you to also take something upon yourself. Take more time to learn Torah and apply it to your life. Because if you don't apply it to your life, it's like saying a blessing while you're busy fixing the bike. It becomes meaningless. Take more learning Torah upon yourself. Take giving more tzedakah upon yourself. Perhaps even sign up to give 10% or 20% of your income to publicize Torah with us. Do more chesed. Give out more books and USBs to help other people do tshuva. Something that we allow you and enable you to do for free. Do something to help Am Yisrael get closer to Torah. While the evil leaders of the secular government are fighting against the Torah, we have to fight back. How? Publicizing even more Torah. Publicizing even more Torah. Why? Because this and only this has ever been the tool that brought us salvation. This is the only thing that brings us salvation. Weapons of mass destruction do not help bring salvation. Big artillery and weapons and missiles and a lot of soldiers never bring salvation. Money never brings salvation unless it's utilized for the sake of the Torah. So let's all take something upon ourselves. And BeEzrat HaShem, the national, international, as well as the personal salvation of each and every single one of us will come sooner rather than later. And BeEzrat HaShem, we will all succeed. With that being said, B'chavod, you guys can start asking questions. BeEzrat HaShem, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will give us the answers. As we're speaking, I see Rav Ephraim just sent me a message saying that they're just entering the surgery room right now. And the little girl is about to have a surgery. May Hashem protect her and give her refuah shlema, miraculous procedure, recovery, and BeEzrat HaShem, only success. Let's see, we have here. Okay. Let me see. What's going to happen when the Messiah comes? Well, the Messiah coming is a whole process. It's not something that just, this happens one day and everything is over. There's a whole process. There's something called Chevle Mashiach. Chevle Mashiach is all of the trials and tribulations that will happen before Mashiach comes. We have an entire series called the Era of Mashiach. It was a series based on the writings of Rav Elchanan Wasserman, HaShem Yikum Damo, who got murdered in the Holocaust. But before he left this world, and died in Kiddush Hashem, literally in Kiddush Hashem. The last thing that he was seen doing was teaching his students in the Holocaust how to purify themselves in order to die in Kiddush Hashem. Teaching them the laws. Now, Rav Elchanan Wasserman wrote a sefer called Ikvita de Meshicha, Era of Mashiach, was the name of the series based on that book. And it's a few dozen lectures where he talks about not only what was happening at the time before the Holocaust, but also the future. And most critically is that he talks about the times being nothing in comparison to what's going to happen before Mashiach, meaning what was happening before the Holocaust, people being killed, people being, literally murdered for no reason in the middle of the street, even before the concentration camps, was nothing in comparison to what's going to happen before Mashiach comes. Why? Because anti-Semitism will be at an all-time high. The hate against and the fight against the Torah will be at an all-time high. There's certainly going to be a test for each and every single person. Now, the prophets tell us that all of this will eventually lead to a war between all of the nations, where this war of Gog and Magog is actually a series of wars, meaning it's not just like one war, they fight, they finish, and it's the end. But this war, Gog and Magog, is really a series of wars whereby the Ishmael nations, or nations of Ishmael, will fight against the nations of Edom. And this war will continue getting worse and worse, a series of wars, eventually culminating at a major world war, to the point where 2/3 of the world will die. 1/3 will remain. But after they fight each other, eventually they will both join forces, meaning Ishmael and Esav will both join forces and together attack Israel. Now, when we said this for the first time, in the name of the prophets, in the name of the sages that spoke about this already thousands of years ago, it didn't really seem so believable to some people, because we were on good terms with America. America was our good buddy. Today, and especially in the last several months, and even more so in the last couple of weeks, people are seeing the writing on the wall. And you can see how the friend can turn into an enemy. Donald Trump was recognized as someone that did a lot of good things for the Jewish people, and even has a daughter that converted to Orthodox Judaism and married a Jew. But Donald Trump saw so much disappointment from the Zionists that are secular and antithetical to the Torah that he is no longer as much of a lover of Israel as he was at first. In fact, he has stated his public disappointment against the community many times. Unfortunately, he's combining everybody together, both the religious and the non-religious. And he himself even also made statements recently about how he thinks that Israel should stop the war. Although it wasn't in the same tone as Biden did, the little mini Obama, that senile version of him, the white senile version of him. But nonetheless, if Donald Trump comes into power right now, I don't necessarily think that the Jewish people are going to be in the same position as they were the first time he won. In fact, it's very easy to imagine how he can turn into an enemy, no less and perhaps even worse than Biden. So, the situation that's happening right now is literally playing out, and you're starting to see how this fight between Ishmael and Edom has been happening, is growing, is getting worse. There's also prophecy that the king of Persia will come to destroy the whole world. This is obviously Iran. This is, again, if you would have said this 150 years ago, people would have laughed at you. If you would have said this 25 years ago, people would have laughed at you. Today, no one's laughing. Everyone knows that Iran wants to destroy the world. Everyone knows. In fact, one of the things that a lot of people don't know is that although HaShem said to Am Yisrael that before the ultimate salvation, there has to be a war against Amalek. Many people thought, oh, Amalek, that's one of the descendants of Esav. So Amalek must be only America. But yet the prophet Daniel said that the nation that will be punished the most at the end of times will actually be Ishmael. So how could it be? If Amalek comes from Edom, then why is Ishmael getting worse punishment? The Abarbanel wrote about 500 years ago that when Ishmael marries Edom, they join forces, they create Amalek together. Meaning that the Amalek is not necessarily every average American. They very well could be part of the third that survive and get to see the real Mashiach. Certainly not the one that they were told their whole life, but rather the Jewish Mashiach. The one that never died. The one that only came once. The one that was the real Mashiach. But certainly, they could be Amalek as well. Meaning that we don't know exactly who in the end is going to survive and who is not going to survive as far as among the nations or even among the Jewish people. You don't know, you can't point to one particular person and say, oh, him, yes, him, no, no, no. What you can do is basically look at the rules of the Torah. And say, according to the rules, this one will survive. This one will thrive. This one has nothing to worry about. Why? HaKadosh Baruch Hu will protect him at all costs. Even if that means supernaturally protecting him, putting him in some bubble, floating in the air, while the missiles are destroying the world, it will not affect him. Why? He's following the Torah. He's following the Torah. HaKadosh Baruch Hu promised to protect him. Unlike all of the other wars that preceded the final war, World War I, World War II, all of the inquisitions, the pogroms, the destructions, the last war of Gog and Magog is unlike anything else. Those that have the merit to see Mashiach means that they're not going to be saved because of some bunker they built in the mountains that saved them. They're not going to be saved because they have a huge gun collection. They went, shopping happy at Walmart. They're not going to be saved because they knew what's going to happen in the news because they were news addicts. No. The ones that will be saved against Amalek, against the enemy of the people, against the enemy of God, are the ones that cleave to Hashem through His Torah, and His Torah only. Whether Jew or Gentile, they cleave to the Torah, they follow what Torah says, they have nothing to worry about. They don't cleave to the Torah, but rather they cleave to their desires, they cleave to their ego, they cleave to their nonsense. They can be assured they'll be part of that 2/3 that will not survive. And that, Rabotai, is going to happen. But this whole series of wars, like I said, starts with Esav against Yaakov, against Esav against Ishmael. Lots of destruction, but then eventually go against Am Yisrael together. All fighting for Jerusalem. All fighting for Jerusalem. If you would have said this 150 years ago, people would have laughed at you. Who wants Jerusalem? Nobody, nobody wanted to live here aside from the Jewish people. Nobody wanted to live here. So Israel was a swampland. The Arabs were not able to develop the land. That's why they sold much of the land well before 1948 to the religious Jews and even to the Zionists. Well before 1948, they sold huge plots of land because it was swampland. There was nothing to do for them. They were getting sick. They didn't want it until a few Reshaim came in the early 1900s and started telling the Arabs that, listen, you're giving too much land away, and they are actually somehow turning this land around, and they're turning it into productive land. They'll eventually get power and overcome us. And this started the animosity between the newfound terrorist group called Palestinians. It's not a nation. There's no such nation as Palestinians. No matter what anybody tells you. Go ask them about their history. Go ask them about their discoveries. Go ask them about their scholars. They don't exist. There is no history of Palestine. It was a name invented by the Romans just to mock the Jews. There's no such thing as a Palestinian country. But this started this whole thing in the early 1900s. Anyone that looks at the papers, the documents, the real facts, see it. These so-called Palestinians came from Jordan, came from Saudi Arabia, came from Egypt, came from different places, different Arab countries, and in essence built a group to hate Jews. Now, although the Jewish people lived in Israel, certainly more people started coming here as we were acquiring more and more land, and the land turned to become more and more productive. And of course, the political aspect of it, we were fighting for recognition of a state. But all of this has been disputed endlessly over the last 70 plus years. And all of that will continue to be disputed until Mashiach comes. In fact, the dispute will reach its climax where there will be a massive war where the whole world will go against Israel. Everyone will go against Israel. At some point, there's going to be a Mashiach ben Yosef. As the Gemara in Masechet Sukkah says, Mashiach ben Yosef will fight. Will fight against the enemy. If the Jewish people have merit, he will survive. If not, he will die in war. Mashiach ben Yosef can potentially die if we don't have the merit. But he's not the Mashiach that everyone has been waiting for. That's Mashiach ben David. Mashiach ben David will not fight at first. Once Hashem tells him to go fight, he won't need weapons, he won't need an army. Beruach piv yamit rasha. He'll destroy the enemies simply with words of the Torah. The enemies will melt to such an extent of destruction that it'll take 7 years just to bury all the bodies of the enemies. Why? Because this is the final war where HaKadosh Baruch Hu will empower the Mashiach with supernatural powers to defeat the enemies from all of the generations. As the Arizal says, that all of the worst leaders that ever lived, that were enemies of Am Yisrael, whether it was Muhammad, Yoshke, Nebuchadnezzar, Titus, the Achashverosh, Haman, Paro, all of the enemies, all of them, they will all be reincarnated into the leaders of the last generation. Those neshamot of the wicked will in essence impregnate the bodies of the leaders of the day in order for Hashem to have one final revenge against the ultimate enemies. And if that wasn't enough, there's also going to be a war against the Erev Rav. Who are the Erev Rav? Erev Rav are wicked Jews that will try to kill the Mashiach. Meaning that the war is not just anyone that's Jewish because his mother is Jewish, he's going to be okay. Absolutely not. The only ones that will be saved, the only ones that will be okay are the ones that are cleaving to the Torah and following the Torah and have done tshuva and are doing tshuva. Everyone else will not only not be okay, they will be the enemies of Mashiach, enemies of Hashem, where everyone will have to choose a side. And that side is either going to be against the Torah and its creator, or they'll be willing to die for it. Meaning, they'll do everything possible to fulfill the Torah well before the Mashiach arrives. And by the time he arrives, that's already when the salvation begins. Even though the war continues and will last for another few more minutes, still the salvation already begins once we know Mashiach ben David is among us, because we know we've survived the most difficult times. Now, as far as what happens after Mashiach, that's certainly, there's different opinions about it. As far as, first we know that it's going to take a long time to bury the bodies. This is intentional. There's also some Chachamim say that the resurrection of the dead will take place 40 years after Mashiach arrives. After that, we will live in this, the righteous people will live in this world until the end of the 7,000th year. But before that happens, the resurrection of the dead will be the resurrection of both the wicked and the righteous. The righteous will be resurrected and get to enjoy this world in a supernatural way, where there's no evil anymore, there's no war, there's no atheism, there's no idolatry. There's only good. And the wicked will be resurrected for a short period of time in order to see the reward of the righteous, which in itself increases their suffering, increases the wicked people's suffering. And then they'll destroy it again. Now, after that 7,000th year, meaning approximately another 1,000 years added to this world, is done, where during this time, of course, the Mashiach builds the Bet HaMikdash, where everyone's learning Torah, everyone is enjoying life, there's no sickness, there's no disease, there's no war, there's no politics, there's no Palestinians, There's no Amalek. There's certainly no Zionism. This world of peace will be a culmination of the physical world. And after that, there's Olam Haba. Olam Haba is the place that no one is there yet. All of the righteous people from the previous generations are in heaven. Heaven is not Olam Haba. They're two different places. Olam Haba is after the culmination of this world. After the end of this world, then there's the Olam Haba. But either way, the pleasure that the righteous are receiving as we speak cannot be measured by all of the human minds combined. And the pleasure that each and every one of us will get for even one mitzvah, one blessing with proper intention, one donation to publicize Torah, one page of Gemara that we learn, one shiur that we watch, the reward that each one of us will get for just one of those things literally is more significant than all of the pleasure that ever existed in the physical world from the beginning of the world until the end of the world, by every single person combined, will not match the reward that you will get, the pleasure that you will get for observing the one mitzvah. And this, Rabotai, is just the beginning. But the reason why we don't say Mashiach now is because according to the Torah, unfortunately, most people will not be on the good side, on the side of salvation, because they're not following the Torah. And this is the reason why we do what we do, in order to wake up the people, to make them realize that we need to do tshuva, in order for us to prepare ourselves for the salvation, for Mashiach, before it's too late. If we do tshuva, then the verse that David HaMelech said will be fulfilled. Uba leTzion goel leshaveh pesha beYaakov. That the goel, the Mashiach will come in order to bring salvation to all of those people that used to be criminals. Spiritual criminals. He'll bring them salvation. Why? Because they've done tshuva. So if we do tshuva, if we repent, if we stop going against the Torah, if we stop believing that a person is God or a piece of God, if we stop doing dishonest business, if we stop worshiping money, if we stop, with all the pornography and the immorality and all that garbage, if we stop with the immodesty, if we start learning Torah and start following mitzvot, while doing business, while living life, while raising our kids, but raising our kids and living life in a Torah way, we will be preparing ourselves for all of the horrible things that are about to happen in such a way that it won't affect us. It won't affect us. The world can blow over, but it won't affect you. Why? Because HaShem is with you. As the Torah says in the book of Exodus, chapter 14, verse 14, Adonai lachem lachem v'atem techalishun. God will fight your wars and you shall remain silent. This, Rabotai Karim, is critical for us to know, because if we don't have confidence in Hashem through difficult times and only love Hashem through good times, then that means we don't believe in Hashem. We believe in ourselves. So it's critical for us to be prepared and to prepare others. And BeEzrat Hashem, we succeed. Let's see, what else? When the Mashiach comes, BeEzrat Hashem, when we do tshuva, he can come at any moment. But we are hoping that it's by the time we all do tshuva, or at least many more of us do tshuva. How do you pronounce the Tetragrammaton, the Yud Kei Vav Kei? You're not allowed to pronounce it. you're if you are a Sephardi Jew and you go based on the Bet Yosef, Rabbi Yosef Karo, every time you say a blessing, which obviously it has to have Hashem's name, the Yud Kei Vav Kei, which is also called the Tetragrammaton, you're supposed to think of the way we say it, which is spelled Aleph Dalet Nun Yud, which is not the way that actual word, the Yud Kei Vav Kei, is actually pronounced, but we say it, my master. Why? Because you have to think Hashem is the master of the world. But the name itself, the Yud Kei Vav Kei, actually means Ayahoveh V'yeh. He was, he is, he will be. He always was here before time, before the creation of time, before the world. He always is here. No such thing as Hashem sleeping or resting or not paying attention or not knowing. And he always will be here. So when you pray, you're supposed to, in essence, think about both. Now, many Chachamim say that we are in a generation where many people are unlearned and incapable of thinking about both of those things at the same time when they're making every blessing. So at the very least, Rav Auerbach says they should at least think about one of them. They should at least think about Hashem is the master of the world, which is the easier one of the two. Every time you pray, every time you make a blessing, think about that you're blessing and exalting the name of who? Of the master of the world. And that's in essence what you're saying in the blessing. Baruch atah Hashem, Elokeinu melech haolam. Blessed are you, Hashem, our God, King of the world, Master of the world. So at the very least, believe what you're saying, that He's the Master of the world, including you. When you do that, you're fulfilling the blessing in the right way. But as far as to say the actual name, the way that it's written, is forbidden. It's not allowed to say it. What does the sacrifice of the red heifer have to do with the Mashiach? The sacrifice of the red heifer cannot be done before Mashiach comes. Anyone that tells you that they are going to do it, it's just a publicity stunt. There is no such thing as sacrifice of anything before Mashiach comes. Number one, because we are all impure. So therefore, anything that we would sacrifice would automatically become impure. Number two, in order for that sacrifice to be done, there has to be a Bet HaMikdash, and there has to be a Kohanim. Kohanim that, not just people that believe that they're Kohanim, but there has to be a Kohen Gadol, there has to be a Mashiach. So there is no such thing as sacrificing of the red heifer before Mashiach comes. Some people are saying that there's some organization that supposedly is doing one, in a near future. This is simply a publicity stunt in order to get attention, in order to go on the newspapers, in order to get some money, donations, investments, whatever they're getting. It has nothing to do with Mashiach. It has nothing to do with Torah. It's complete publicity stunt. Once Mashiach comes, then in order to purify the righteous people that survive the massive war and so on, He will use the red heifer, which the Torah tells us that it has to be slaughtered, then burned at the altar of the Bet HaMikdash. Then the ashes are combined with a couple of other things in order for them to take trickles of the water, the pure water of the kiyol, and the ashes, and that's sprinkled on each person in order to purify them as part of a whole process. But it's the purity that cannot be done without the Bet HaMikdash, without the Mizbeach, without the Mashiach, without prophets. None of this can be done right now. Anyone that is telling you they're doing it is either lying and they're not doing anything, or they're doing something which is actually a violation of the Torah, which is lying, cheating, being dishonest, and on top of all of it, doing a sacrifice that they're forbidden from doing, because you're not allowed to do a sacrifice without the Bet HaMikdash. So, in so many words, whoever is doing it is wicked in the eyes of HaShem, and certainly, the Torah tells you to stay away from such people. Do you think that the temple will be rebuilt in our lifetime? Yes, BeEzrat HaShem. Of course, the Mashiach will come during our lifetime, and when he comes, he will be the one that will get rebuild the Bet HaMikdash. I mean, the Bet HaMikdash, there's a debate of whether the Bet HaMikdash will be built by us, or Hashem is going to send it down. But in essence, the debate is not really a debate, but rather there is already a Bet HaMikdash that Hashem has in Shemaim, and that Bet HaMikdash will come down, but he will bring it down incomplete, because he would want us to become partners in this Bet HaMikdash. So we will add, the final stones. We're not going to be building the Bet HaMikdash from scratch. That you could be sure of. The Bet HaMikdash has been something that has been built as throughout the last several thousand years. As the Gemara tells us, multiple stories of different Chachamim that saw angels actually building parts of the Bet HaMikdash, such as the gates of the third Bet HaMikdash are made of huge diamonds that don't exist in the world today. They're bigger diamonds than you can, like this. You talk about huge, giant gates that are all diamond, one diamond. Each one is a huge diamond. And the angels have been cutting them already, for the last several thousand years, and all types of other parts of the Bet HaMikdash that are being built as we speak. But the final stones, in essence, will be the righteous Jewish people that survive this difficult time because they cleave to Hashem. But as far as anybody thinks that the Bet HaMikdash is just simply going to be some, clever architect coming up with nice designs after he gets the funding from some multi-billionaire real estate developer, no, it's certainly not going to be that, not even remotely close to that. How can I be a better person, Rabbi? Simple. If you listen to everything we've been saying for the last hour or so, the main key is to look at what the Torah tells us to do and follow what you're supposed to do. If you're a Jew, follow the laws that apply to Jews. If you're a non-Jew, follow the laws that apply to non-Jews. And one of the most critical parts of the Torah is to know that there is a written Torah and an oral Torah. The oral Torah explains all of the details that are in between the lines of the written Torah, and part of those laws are what's called Mussar. Mussar meaning character development. So character development is an obligation for every person, whether Jew or Gentile. All of us have to develop our characters and eliminate the character flaws, whether it's anger, stinginess, arrogance, any type of negative character trait. A person has to develop it. And one of the best ways that a person can do it is by learning Mussar. We did a series called Mussar Pirkei Avot. It's 179 lectures, averaging about 2.5 to 3 hours each, that go through the fundamental teachings of Mussar, which is Pirkei Avot. Pirkei Avot is like all of Mussar from the written Torah, comes from the book of Deuteronomy, and all the Mussar from the written Torah, from the oral Torah, comes from Pirkei Avot. In essence, the two are the foundation of all character development teachings. And if a person watches that series, they're going to get sources from across the different spectrums of the Torah to real life things that you deal with every single day. And every lecture is completely different teachings from the next lecture. And it all builds one after the other. By the time you get through 2-3 lectures, you already feel different. By the time you're in 10 lectures, you already are doing different. By the time you've gone through the series itself, you're not only different, you're making other people different. You're making other people different. So I highly recommend the Mussar Pirkei Avot series as a part of your daily learning. This will certainly make you a better person. Okay. No, a lot of nonsense. What do we think about Muhammad and the Quran? Nothing good. Nothing good. We don't think anything good about Muhammad and the Quran. He was a illiterate, anti-Semite, murderer, pedophile. And the Quran is full of mistakes, deception, and incitation to murder. So what can anyone think about the Quran other than that? Someone that actually learned the Quran, someone that actually knows what the Quran says, and knows the real history of Muhammad, will agree with every single thing that I said. I didn't make up one thing. There's clear verses in the Quran that I've mentioned in previous lectures that literally incite the followers of Islam, the followers of Muhammad, to go and murder people, to go and lie, to go and cheat. I mean, he is emulated and idolized in such an extent that everything, according to the Quran, that he did was good, which means that him, raping a little girl, according to the Quran, is okay. Him being a pedophile is okay. Him murdering a bunch of Jews that didn't want to accept his nonsense is okay. So the reality is the Quran doesn't have anything that's good that came from Muhammad. Whatever that's good from ideas from the Quran, they stole from the Torah, both the written Torah and the oral Torah. So it's not a secret. It's a reality because the Torah preceded it. Both the written Torah and the oral Torah came before the Quran. And you could clearly see that all of the good ideas that are peaceful, that are good, that are in the Quran, already exist in our Torah, both the written Torah and the oral Torah. And everything that's not in the Torah is evil. Not evil just because it's not in the Torah. It's evil because literally it's evil. So a person that teaches people evil is evil. A person that massacred a bunch of people that didn't want to follow him is evil. Simple. You're never going to find a holy Jewish person such as Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, Moshe Rabbeinu, you're never going to see any one of those people to simply go to another place and say, hey, by the way, if you don't convert, we're going to kill you. No. You're never going to see that. Then you say, wait, hold on a second. Yeshua ben Nun, that took leadership over after Moshe Rabbeinu, he went against all the Canaanite nations. No, he didn't go against them. God went against them. He already told Yeshua ben Nun, when you go to Eretz Yisrael, you're going to have to kick out all of these nations. But you're going to give them an option. They can either leave on their own, like the Gilgashites did, or they could fight you. And if they fight you, obviously, destroy them. Don't allow them to stay. No Palestinian land inside Israel. No Palestinian government inside of no such thing. No Canaanites, no Palestinians. Either you are following the Torah or you're out of the land. Now, the Gilgashites ran away and they actually got blessed for it. They got blessed for it. The other nations stayed and they fought against Yeshua ben Nun, and he defeated each one of them, 31 different nations. Now, the Gilgashites, there's actually a museum, I believe it's in Holland, that has some artifacts from their time, some document, where they write in there that they ran away from the Yeshua ben Nun. They ran away from the Yeshua ben Nun and his people. And obviously they don't say anything nice about him, but the point is that Hashem blessed them because they didn't stay, and they actually ran away. But the bigger thing is to know that the Jewish people, when they're following the Torah, they never go for war for no reason. There's no such thing. There's only wars either that God obligates us to do, go fight against the Canaanites, or it's a war of self-defense where somebody attacks us and we have to defend ourselves. But Muhammad, on the other hand, and Islam is the opposite. Why? He was a conqueror. He was a conqueror. He went from place to place, and for hundreds of years, there was a major battle between the Ishmaelim versus Edom. The Crusades fought, initially in the name of the Pope and the Church, had a mission to go and fight the Ishmaelim, fight Islam from spreading all over the world. And the Ishmaelim had a plan to spread all over the world. And they were fighting against each other. This is generally what the historians will tell you. What the historians will not tell you is that while they both did this, while the Ishmaelim did what they did and the Crusades did what they did, they massacred entire communities of Jews along the way, especially the Crusades. The Crusades were literally the Amalek of Amalek. They literally would go into Jewish communities and would murder everyone without exception. Men, women, children, babies, every single, without an exception, in the most heinous, horrible way, all in one day, unless they converted to Christianity. They don't convert to Christianity, they die on the spot. They didn't even take them as slaves. And this was going on for hundreds of years. Hundreds of years, literally, you had all types of Jewish communities across Poland, Ukraine, all types of communities that literally got massacred. And it's not like they would go, these Crusades, Yimach Shemam V'Zichram, they would go, kill a few people and leave. No, literally they wouldn't leave until they burned the entire town to ashes. Now the historians will tell you the Crusades were fighting for the sake of the church, to protect the people, so the Islam doesn't spread all over the world, but in reality, no. They wanted another excuse to destroy the Jews, and they did it along the way. Islam, same thing. Not as much as the Christians, but nonetheless, we suffered quite a bit from the Muslims throughout their history, but the biggest part of the suffering has from the Muslims has been unfortunately in recent years, and what's happening before Mashiach comes. So if you ask any Jew that knows a little bit of Torah and history, what they think about either of these religions, if they're telling you the truth, they'll tell you exactly what I just said, which is nothing good. We don't think anything good about them. Why? Because they only caused us harm. They never caused us any good. And we say, yeah, but there were some Christians that were nice to you. There were some Muslims that were nice to you. Yes, you're right. There were some nice Muslims and some nice Christians that even saved some Jewish lives. You're right. But it was never on a national scale. It was never a nationwide belief. It was individuals. It was small pockets. Pockets of good among the huge fields of evil. So if you judge everything as far as the majority, there's no comparison. Are you ignoring our questions? I'm obviously answering the questions right now. How could I be ignoring the questions? What's my favorite gun? My favorite gun is the Chumash. You know what the Chumash? Chumash is my favorite gun. It's the most powerful gun known to man. And it's not even a recent invention. It doesn't even require a major architect. It doesn't have to be fixed. It doesn't have to have any type of additional pieces. It's something that God himself created. It's the Chumash, 5 books of Moses. That's my favorite gun. That's the only gun that I ever use. Okay. Why do we discuss war when we must study? Well, if you actually studied, you would know that one of the names for the Torah is the Book of Wars, the Wars of God. Learning Torah is not just learning about stories of what happened 3,000 years ago. Rather, it's learning of how to apply all of the laws, the stories, and the details and the teachings in order to develop ourselves into better servants of God, better people, more righteous people. And part of righteousness is to know what evil is and hate it, what good is and love it, what to fix and fix it, what to reject and reject it. So the book that you call the Torah, like the rest of the Jewish people, is also called the Book of Wars. So we talk about war because every single page in the Torah is telling you the lessons of war of some kind. Sometimes that war is the war that is, happening between people, fighting over all types of different ideas, ideologies, control, power, money, and so on. Sometimes those wars are wars between you and yourself, you and your desires. All of us have different addictions to desires, to enjoy things that are forbidden. So this Book of Wars is literally every page of the Torah is teaching us how to fight all of those wars. The ones that are on the outside and the ones that are on the inside. Okay. What does it mean? What does it mean in the end of days about eating the Leviathan Feast? If you look at the first parasha in the Torah, it says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world, created the heaven and the earth, and so on. And one of the things that he created was the Leviathan. Now, initially, he created two of them, and one of them he killed because if they would reproduce, they would destroy the world. And as David HaMelech says in Tehillim, the Leviathan is so big, he's like Hashem's pet. And this Leviathan is enormous beyond our comprehension. There are some writings out there that give a measurement for the Leviathan and estimate him to be approximately 958 miles. 958 miles. So obviously this is not something that the human mind can comprehend, such a big thing. Even in the most grand movie imagination out there, nothing is that big. Nothing is that big. Whether it be the Godzillas or the dinosaurs or whatever it is. So the massive size of the Leviathan is beyond human comprehension. As people would say, wait a minute, hold on, if it's so big, how come we can't see it? That's because the world is also big. Much bigger than 958 miles. In fact, as I explained yesterday, if you go into a forest, let's say, for example, if you're in New York, go to Central Park. Go to Central Park. If they remove all the lights, they remove your phone from your pocket, and they remove the people from there, there's no doubt that you can get lost in that forest called Central Park and literally think it's the end of the world because that's where you're going to live. It's huge. It's enormous. And if you've never been in a forest and don't know how to navigate out of a forest, you could literally get lost in such a thing. Needless to say, if you go into the jungle, if you go into the Amazon, your chances of survival out of the Amazon are slim to none. If you don't have serious experience, and even if you do have serious experience. Why? Because it's massive. It's massive. Now, both the Amazon and the Central Park are nothing in comparison to the desert. Desert. You go into the desert, chances of survival in the desert are literally below zero, unless you have serious experience. And again, I'm not talking about using modern day technology, going on a plane, obviously. Talk about go walk through the desert, even on a camel on the desert. Chances of survival, very, very small, unless you know how to navigate the desert. Why? Because it's massive, it's huge, it's enormous. You could literally go in one direction and feel like you're walking in the same place for days, because it's so massive. It's so massive that anyone that went through the desert and survived would have to say a special blessing and bring a sacrifice of the Bet HaMikdash. Now, the forest of Amazon, needless to say Central Park, and the desert, all combined, are nothing in comparison to the ocean. In comparison to the ocean. The ocean is massive. It's beyond human comprehension. And therefore, for Hashem to have such large creature in the ocean is not a big deal at all. When you understand, at least to the best of our abilities, how massive the ocean is. If you want to get a better idea of it, talk to one of these seamen. Talk to somebody that works on one of these oil places where they are literally digging in the middle of the ocean, or one of the people that works at these shipping container companies that travels the ocean. Talk to them, how massive the ocean is. I mean, of course, you could watch some films about it and documentaries and so on, but the human experience is nothing. in comparison to it. But I can tell you that when people think of 958 miles, they think that's something that's so big that you can't hide it. That's only because they're looking at it from their little human perspective. When you compare it to the world, 950 miles is nothing. It's literally nothing. It's like a little dot. It's like throwing a coin from the Sears Tower. That coin is insignificant in comparison. So this massive kosher fish is going to be part of the reward that the righteous Jews will get after Mashiach comes, as a celebration feast, a seudat odaya, a seudah to thank HaShem for bringing us to salvation. Would be that HaShem will slaughter that fish, and actually we will eat him, and this is going to be something out of this world. And it's, again, like I said, it's a kosher fish. It has fins and scales. Imagine how big these scales are. The scales are going to be, each one is going to be something that a person can make a house out of. It's a massive, massive creature. And it's mentioned in the Torah, multiple places. Does Judaism speak of demons and possessions? Of course it does. The word the demons appears in the Torah itself, in the 5 books of Moses. It appears multiple times. In Parashat Azinu, Moshe Rabbeinu warns Am Yisrael from following the demons. In fact, it's mentioned in other places as well. But also there are many times that Am Yisrael had to teach us about the danger of demons, and also explain, as it says in the Gemara in Masechet Brachot, there are different types of demons. There are demons that are completely spiritual, where it's like it's a spirit. Then there is one that's partial spiritual, partial physical, material, like a human, half. And then there's one that is 100% physical. That's that eats and drinks and procreates. So there's different types of demons. There's also something called mazikin. Mazikin is not a demon. It's similar, but it's not. So this is we call it demons because it's simply easier to explain it in the English language by just calling everything that's of negative forces of demons. But it's not exact. It's not the same thing as a demon. There's also Malachei Kabbalah. There is also Dibukim, which is a mazik of some kind that actually enters a human being and takes control over that person's abilities, behaviors, and even control of their body. There is a Chacham by the name of Rabbi Yehuda Ftaya that lived about 80 years ago. And he has a whole book that was his journal that was documented by his Gabai, his helper, watched and was with him throughout all of these experiences, that he was an expert in removing these dibukim from people through the Holy Torah, not through the idol worship of the church, but through the Holy Torah. And in fact, there are Kabbalists throughout history that dealt with them. There was also the different sages, the different Jewish sages dealt with them. Some of them were very, concerned about them. There were different types that were looking to destroy certain people. Some of them were able to destroy these demons. and there were different types of demons in those days that actually would appear on a regular basis and would harm people. Meaning there were more than what you have today. Today, most of what you have in the world is the spiritual ones, and the ones that are partially physical are not very, very apparent, and they're not obvious. In those days of the Gemara, and even after, you actually had them constantly in specific places, walking around, doing what they wanted. Even in one place in the Gemara, it talks about one that actually ended up, going to a synagogue and, in essence, blocking the way. Nobody was able to enter the place because of this three-headed demon. So until one of the sages came and, without knowing that it's there, and killed it. But the point being is that there's many places in the Torah that discuss this. There's different types, like I said. All of the teachings that the church has and the Quran has about the demons and things like that, much of it came from the writings of the Jews. Now, some of it was through their own experiences. Because especially in Islam, there were certain people, and even until this day, that would communicate with the demons on a regular basis. In fact, there's also something that you find in certain parts of Christianity, where they communicate with them on a regular basis. They use different types of tools in order to communicate with them. In so many words, they befriend them, if you will. In Judaism, it's forbidden to befriend these things to such an extent and use them unless there's a national purpose, like there is in the story of at the time of the Romans, where we needed a decree that they passed against the Jews, canceled. So the sages sent Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai and the son of Rabbi Yossi to go to the emperor and try to cancel the decree. And Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai prayed that Hashem will send him some type of angel to help them, and Hashem sent them, one of the leaders of the demons. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai cried over this because he said, "Look, we're such a low generation in comparison to our forefathers, Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, that even the maidservant of Avraham, Hagar, was able to speak to an angel, but we only get a demon here." But he still was able to command the demon to do what he said, which was to go and enter the body of the daughter of the emperor, make her go crazy until Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai arrives, and then he would take her, force him to come out of her, and that would make the Jews find favor in the eye of the emperor, so he would cancel the decree. This is one of the stories from a couple of thousand years ago. We have in our Gemara. Anyone that learns the Talmud knows this story, at least if they completed the Talmud, or at least have completed that Masechet, which that story appears at least, I think a couple of times. But there's a few experiences that are similar to it that happen with other sages. Point being is that there are many places across the spectrum of the written and the oral Torah that discuss the different teachings and information about demons. But unlike the other nations and religions that glorify demons and even serve them, befriend them, call them to come, like for a person, to serve individuals, this is not something that the Jews do. But needless to say, it's certainly something that the Jewish people have had to deal with because they're a real thing. They exist. Let's see. God didn't name your religion Jews. You create your religion named Jews from Judah. Well, actually, the word Jewish appears in the same Tanakh that you believe, Yuchamo. The word Jew appears in the Tanakh, the same Tanakh that the Jews believe in, and the Muslims believe in, and the Christians believe in. Also says the word Jews. Where does it say it? The first time it says, it's in the book of Esther. Mordechai Yehudi. Mordechai Yehudi, Mordechai the Jew. So the same Tanakh that you believe in says the word Jew. So not really sure which fortune cookie you learned your knowledge from, but you should stop learning from fortune cookies. And don't tell the Jews how to learn Torah. It's our book. Will you give me a response to the ones that say that dinosaurs disprove God? To say that anything disproves God is simply stupid. There's no such thing as disproving God. You can never disprove God. It's not possible to say that something doesn't exist. That the Creator doesn't exist. Now you can say you don't believe in Him, and certainly you'll be punished for it, but nonetheless you can say you don't believe in God, but there's no way to prove that God does not exist. That's not possible. Secondly, as far as dinosaurs disproving God, I don't know how stupid the people that are saying this are, but certainly they're on of the upper echelon of stupidity. Perhaps they should be instituted. You should consider it at least. But the dinosaurs appear in the Torah. In the Torah, in fact, within the first couple of paragraphs of the Torah, dinosaurs are mentioned. Where HaKadosh Baruch Hu says that He created the Taninim Agdolim. What is Taninim Agdolim? Huge reptiles. Huge reptiles. So, dinosaurs are in the Torah. And in fact, they appear at different parts of the Torah where David HaMelech, 3,000 years ago, says that he was a shepherd with his sheep, walking and singing and praying to HaShem on some mountain, and all of a sudden the mountain started moving and he realized that it wasn't a mountain but rather a re'em. What's a re'em? A re'em was an enormous animal, bigger than the dinosaurs of the movies, but it looked like a combination of a bull and a deer. Just a whole lot bigger, and bigger than what the dinosaur movies are. So much bigger that it was literally like a mountain that David HaMelech climbed it with all of his sheep. Didn't realize that it's not even a mountain. And this appears also in the book of Job. The point being is that dinosaurs appear in the Torah, huge animals appear in the Torah, and even if they didn't appear, or if they were on every single page, neither one would ever disprove God. Neither one would ever disprove God. What disproves the questioner's intellect is the question, though. Meaning that if he or she thought that they were an intellectual, we have just disproven it. They no longer are allowed to believe that they're an intellectual. In fact, they should make a shirt and write on the shirt, I am a mental midget, and I should never question the Torah ever again. And they could put the BeEzrat HaShem logo on it, because that's the message that they should accept upon themselves until they do tshuva. The Ramban holds that demons don't exist from what I understand. My dear friend, you are misunderstanding. The Ramban does not say that demons do not exist. Rather, he's saying that a specific type of demon does not exist in the land of Israel. Why is it that and not what you thought and what unfortunately other people thought? Because there is no room to believe in something that's contrary to the Torah and still remain a religious Jew, according to the Rambam, who says in his 13 principles of faith that he wrote in the Shmona Prakim and also in Ilchot Talmud Torah, that if one were to not believe a single verse in the Torah, or even a single word in the Torah, or even a single word in the Gemara, or even an idea of one of the sages, they would be considered a heretic and excluded from the nation of Israel. Now, of course, the Rambam does not fit that definition. He's the opposite. He's the most righteous. He's a tzaddik. He's Kodesh Kodeshim. And therefore, for the Rambam to agree with the statement that some people think of they're not being demons would be heretical. Why? Because there are clear verses in the Chumash, in the 5 books of Moses, that talk about demons. Clear verse in the 5 books of Moses that talk about demons. Clear statements and teachings in the Talmud that talk about demons. And the different types of demons as we discussed earlier. The one that's, only spiritual, partially spiritual, half physical, full physical. There's also mezikim. There's all types. So when the Rambam made that statement, he was specifically referring to a certain type in the land of Israel. That's it. There was a certain type that was dangerous, particularly on Wednesdays and Friday nights. And that's the one that he was referring to, that he does not believe is any longer in the land of Israel. That's it. We're not talking about anything else. All the others are still there, and BeEzrat Hashem will protect us from them. But as far as the understanding that the Rambam didn't believe in demons is 100% incorrect and would be heretical, according to the Rambam's definition. The present Jewish religion is rabbinic form after destruction and a second temple where animal sacrifices were blah, 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 blah. No, what's your point? No question. Oh, so you're one of these morons that thinks you know more about Judaism than the Jews. Okay, fine. Good luck to that. If the Jews return to the state of holiness, the Garden of Eden will be established again. The Garden of Eden is already established now. It was never destroyed. There's 2 Garden of Edens. There's 2 heavens. There's one in the physical world. That's where Adam and Chava were. And there's one in the spiritual world, meaning in the heavens. There's 2. Same thing with Gehenom. There is one in this world, and there's one in the upper world. In fact, one of the world leaders, some say it was Alexander Mogdon, Alexander the Great, that ruled over a large part of the world and got to travel to different places around the world, and was an adventurer. Again, some say it was him, some say it was somebody else, but they say that he found the gates of heaven, the physical heaven in this world, and wanted to enter, but of course it's blocked, and there is the angels there, the chuvim. The chuvim there, the spinning sword, 2 angels that the Torah writes that Hashem has watching the gate of heaven, not to allow anybody in. And they don't have a humor. How do I know they don't have a humor? From this particular story, where when he asks to enter, obviously he's rejected. He says, yeah, but I came all the way here. Can I at least have some type of proof that I saw this place, and they open the little compartment and give him a little box, and he opens the box, and inside the box there's an eye. Apparently, they find this humorous. I don't think you guys find it humorous unless you're a very morbid person, but nonetheless, that was the humor of the angels, and that's the historical story. Believe, don't believe, that's your problem, but nonetheless, either way, there is a physical heaven, there is a spiritual heaven. We've discussed some of them in previous lectures, so there's no need to repeat. For all the Muslims that are making comments and bringing your quotes from your Quran, don't you have some imam or some mosque or some terror cell to go to? I don't understand. Go over there. Why are you bringing your Quran here? You don't see any Jews infiltrating your church or your imam, your mosque. You don't see us going to your lecture and saying, "Oh, look, the Torah says otherwise." We don't really care about what you do. Why don't you guys go to your thing and quote your nonsense over there? I don't understand. I never understood that. Same thing with Christians. Like if you want to quote your false testament, go to some church. Go to one of these prosperity leaders that pretty much milk the community out of money so they can buy more jets, and tell them the quotes. We're here to learn Torah. We're not here to learn your stuff. What is the oldest book in the Torah? The Chumash, the 5 books of Moses. If God exists, why did he stop speaking to people? Why should Malachi be the last prophet? Now, did you think about this question all by yourself, or did you have, other mentally challenged people help you with this question? Like, honestly, I love you guys. I want to help you. I want to learn with you. I want to go forward. I want to serve God. But you have to ask questions after you think about them. After you think about them. Don't just write just because you want to get attention. Because if you're going to get attention, it's negative attention. I'm the type of rabbi that's not going to give you, yeah, God exists and you should. No, I'm going to tell you that you have to wake up. The question itself is stupid. Why is it stupid? Who are you to think that God has to talk to you just to prove his existence? Why does God have to talk to you or to anybody in order for him to prove his existence? Meaning, the question in itself is foolish. Right now I'm talking to you. If I decide that, you know what, your question was so obnoxious and an insult to our Creator, our Master, our Father in heaven, that it got me so upset, I don't want to talk to you anymore. Does that mean that I don't exist anymore? Tell me. If you are so offended by my response that you go cry and you say, I can't believe the rabbi said this about me. I really thought hard about my question. And you don't talk to me anymore. Does that mean that you don't exist anymore? No. Whether you communicate with somebody or not doesn't mean whether you exist or not. Just means you don't communicate with them in that fashion. In fact, if you are on mute and you are not able to communicate, does that mean that you don't exist? If your wife or husband was deaf and couldn't hear you, does that mean that you don't exist? So, as far as God speaking to people, speaking to them or not does not prove his existence. Number one. Number two, who said that God does not communicate with people? He doesn't speak to them today like he spoke to the prophets of a couple of thousand years ago, but he communicates with each and every single one of us, every single moment of the day, through our life events. Did you ever have a stomach ache? Why do you think that happened? Did you ever lose money? Why do you think that happened? Did you ever make money? Why do you think that happened? Did you ever see somebody die? Hear about somebody die? Who do you think made that happen? If you pay attention to the creation, you see God. Everything is through his hand. Everything is through his hand. In fact, the more a person learns Torah, the more they're able to see God in the creation, in their life, in their experiences. And they know that every single time something happens to them, that is HaShem communicating to them in order for them to know which direction they're going, whether they're going in a positive direction or a negative direction. They're going against God or they're going in the way of God. So God is not communicating to you or anybody else in the same way that he communicated to Moshe Rabbeinu or any of the prophets, but he's certainly communicating to us. And in fact, the reason why he doesn't communicate to us in the same fashion is because we are not in the same level of holiness and righteousness as the prophets. If we were, he would. But we're not. So to demand anything from the master of the world is complete obnoxious arrogance, to the extent where a person does not realize that they came from the body parts that their parents excrete the filth out of their body. And in fact, when they leave this world, they'll be even lesser than that. And all of that is through the hands of God, including the period in between, where you have breath of fresh air, things to see, sound to hear, things to taste, an entire ecosystem inside your body, where the sages teach that each person is a world. This is not to pump up your arrogance and your ego and motivate you to feel good, but rather literally each person is a world. If you look at the way that your body is made up, you will see that your body literally is a world of its own. There are different nations, if you will, within your body. Some are allies, some are enemies. Different cities, different jobs, different companies, cleaning companies, production manufacturing companies, all types of things that produce, things that reproduce. Literally, you have an entire ecosystem in your body. And you also have a risk, a universal enemy that can also enter the body, that threatens everyone and unites everyone at the same time. All of this is in your body and much more. So that all came from some putrid seed that comes out of the place that your parents excrete from, and all of that will turn into nothing one day when we all go back into the dust we came from. So that in itself proves God. I don't need him to speak to me in order for me to see him. I could see him through my flesh, as Job said. You should do the same. Sometimes you forget that you have flesh because you don't feel it, because you feel good. Sometimes Hashem reminds you that you have flesh. How? You start feeling everything. But when you feel everything, that means you have a lot of pain. And you regret that you ever asked if God existed or not, because now you feel Him. How will God punish people? I never heard anything like this from Judaism. There is a entire film that I made about the different levels of punishment. First, there's the level of punishment that happens in the grave, which is called chibut akever, or in English, the beatings of the grave. If you want to know more about it, go to my channel and type chibut akever, CHIBUT, and that will be enough. You'll find the film over there. It's approximately an hour full of footage and Torah sources, and some things you wish you probably never saw, because they're real. They're not just imagery. But nonetheless, it's there. That's the punishment in the grave. There's also a 4.5-hour lecture that I made, comprised of at least 100 to 150 sources, if not 200 sources, about a place called Kafakela. Kafakela is mentioned in the Gemara Masechet Shabbat, the last chapter. David HaMelech mentions it in the book of Shmuel, chapter 25. And it's a specific type of punishment for specific types of sinners, where angels of destruction fling their soul from one end of the world to the other end of the world while beating them. And this is just part of the punishment. And this could go on for thousands of years. Then there is a place called Gehenna. I have a film, 3-hour film, that talks about the details of Gehenna and the 7 chambers in Gehenna for different types of sinners. Go to my channel, type the word Gehenna, GEHIONNONNOM. And I'm sorry, GH, yeah, I'm losing my mind. I start thinking about Gehenna, I start getting scared, so I start forgetting. Just go to my channel, type Gehenna. It's not a pleasant film. It's a top production. It's full of real education, according to the Torah. But it's not a feel-good film. But it certainly will educate you for a lifetime. Some people say that they need to watch this film multiple times every month to keep themselves on the right path. And good for them, that they know what they need in order to stay on the right path. But anyway, go to Gehenna, the film on my channel, and you'll see over 100 sources from the Torah discussing it. Then there's also reincarnation, which is actually a form of punishment. That's also mentioned in the film Gehenna. And there was also a short film that we made recently called Reincarnation. It's about a 10-minute film. Talks about reincarnation. So there's all types of punishment for all types of sinners. And all of it comes from the Torah. And in fact, all of the teachings regarding punishment that the Christian church or Islam has, all of it comes from the Torah. Any truth that they have in there, all of it comes from the Torah. Nothing comes from them. Why? Because we preceded them, we wrote it well before them, and they simply plagiarized without giving us any credit. Okay, we're going to take 1 or 2 more questions and then we'll be done. Rabbi, does the Torah prohibit wearing non-kosher animal skin and hides? No, not at all. Animals were created for the use of people. As long as you don't torture them for no reason, there's no problem with killing them in order to make clothing, in order to make beds, shoes, and so on. We're not here to turn the world into alligator land because we like the alligators. No, if you could turn the alligator into a nice pair of shoes or a belt, bechavod. That's what it was created for. What's the best way to do tshuva? First and foremost is to commit time to learning Mussar every day. Whether it's 15 minutes per day, or half hour per day, or an hour per day, or more, that depends on you. But it's learning Mussar each day. We have thousands of lectures that teach Mussar, which is character development. If you learn that each day, little by little, you'll start thinking different, feeling different, and doing different. And that will be the beginning of your tshuva. It'll give you instructions of not only what to do tshuva for, but also how to do it. Whether it's issues of immorality or issues of unethical business practices or whatever it is that a person needs to do tshuva for. There's hundreds and hundreds of lectures, Baruch HaShem, that we've made over the years that you can listen to and become an expert in the good things in life, in being good. Oh, you found the movie again. Thank you. Very good. Enjoy the enlightenment and being woken up after it. Is there a series of classes or books that you would recommend for bettering one's Hebrew reading and pronunciation? Yeah, I mean, there is several things. There's one thing I recommended years ago by a Rabbi Gold. His name was Rabbi Gold, and I forget what the name of the organization was, but just write down on the internet, on Google, Hebrew teachings, Rabbi Gold. And I'm sure you'll find, I think it's like Pirchei Shushanim, something like that. It's in English, but he's an American that lives in Israel for many years and teaches and so on. So he has something. There's also some other teachers. There's something that I recently found out about. Again, I don't know, I can't vouch for it as far as how good the quality is because I never used it myself, this other one. With the first one that I mentioned to you, we used this also to teach our kids. They enjoyed some of it, and it's certainly something I recommend it to many people. But as far as this other one, I don't know how good it is. It has good reviews. It has good reviews, and what is it called? It's called, I'll tell you in a second. It's called ExecutiveHebrew.com. ExecutiveHebrew.com by Seth Young. He's being recommended by a couple of Torah organizations as an expert and a teacher in Hebrew, and it has some good reviews. Again, I don't know how good it is, but it has good reviews, and it seems interesting. If you want to learn Hebrew, that's certainly a way. How do we explain to a 7, 8-year-old why does Hashem ask that we do animal sacrifices when we are asked to be kind to animals at the same time? We're not asked to be kind to animals in the Torah. We're asked not to torment animals, to torture them. But as far as being kind to them, no. There's no obligation for you to play with your dog and take him to the park and have a good time with him or anything like that. Now, certainly, if you're going to eat, you have to feed your dog first, or your horse, or whatever animal you have, because they rely on you, and that's part of the responsibility that you have. When you have a domesticated animal, you have to feed it before you feed yourself, because if you don't, you are torturing the animal. If you're going to kill the animal in order to use it for food or for to make something out of it, try to do it in the most humane way possible that is going to inflict the least amount of pain. Now, of course, if you're going to eat the animal, if it's a kosher animal, you have to slaughter it. Can't shoot it or poison it or electrocute it or something like that. So as far as being nice to animals, it's not necessarily correct, just to correct you there. But as far as why God tells us to bring sacrifices, that's actually a very different lesson. God tells us to bring sacrifices because we are serving Him through the sacrifices, because if not for the sacrifice, if not for the animal being slaughtered, it would be us being slaughtered. Meaning, when a person makes a unintentional sin, they accidentally violated Shabbat, they accidentally ate forbidden meat, they would now have to bring a sacrifice. Now, the sacrifice is to remind the person that if God wasn't merciful, He would slaughter you instead of the animal. So, in essence, the sacrifice is not because God needs it, but rather because you need it. You need it in order to serve God, in order to have God forgive you, in order to have God protect you, and so on. So this is the key. Okay, I see Rabbi Ephraim just sent us, Baruch Hashem, he's joined us in the shiur, and he also sent me a thing, the little Talia Bat Sarah is having the surgery, and Hashem bless her and give her success, and B'ezrat Hashem, this test will be for the good, B'ezrat Hashem. Okay. One last question. I read the Archangel Michael sacrifices the souls of the tzaddikim on the heavenly altar. What does this mean? I would have to look into the source of where you're quoting this from. It's not something that's it's not an everyday type of statement. Rabbi, the descendants of Yefet and Edom, the same people today. To a certain extent, some of them are, but not all. As we know, there's a intermarriage amongst the nations. So the Ishmael marries Esav on a regular basis, and vice versa. There's a lot of intermarriage, and that's also why we don't know who Amalek is for sure just by looking at them. There's no nation of Amalek right now that just by looking at them. We can only know that someone is Amalek based on their behavior, as far as how much they hate the Torah. So it's not by a certain skin color or nationality or even a religion. There's specific behavior that they have to have. Specific behavior. There's certainly some Amalek that is white, some that's black, some that's yellow. There's all types. There's all types. Do you live in Israel or Boca Raton? Neither. I live in Florida, but not Boca Raton. I used to live in Boca Raton. And I don't live in Israel. I spent some time in Israel, but I don't live in Israel. I was born there, but I don't live there now. Can a Jew become an Amalek? Yeah, that would be called a Erev Rav. Erev Rav is a segment of Amalek. Why isn't Reform conversion accepted? That's because Reform, by definition, is reforming the original Torah. It's reforming the original Torah. So what is it like? Let's say, for example, you are an expert chef. You're so good that you create your own dish that becomes a worldwide dish, no less than spaghetti and meatballs, no less than filfil chuma, no less than trina, no less than some of the other famous types of salads or dishes that people make that pretty much everybody wants to make their own, but in essence, everybody calls it the same thing. So you're such a good guy, that's such a good chef that you make your own thing, and you say that it has to have, let's say, these 5 ingredients. It has to have these 5 ingredients in order for it to be this thing. Now you surely can add some things to it. You can make it 6 ingredients, you can make it 7 ingredients, and it's still, as long as it has those 5, it is that dish. But somebody else comes and says, you know what? What do you have your dish? I have the same dish. Oh yeah? You have the same exact dish? Same exact thing. Show me. They show you, it looks nothing like yours. In fact, it doesn't even look like food. Doesn't even look like food. He said, well, hold on a second. Did you use ingredient number 1? No. Did you use ingredient number 2? No. Ingredient number 3? Absolutely not. Okay. Number 4? No. Number 5? No. Wait, so you didn't use any of the ingredients out of the 5 fundamentals? No, none of them. So your food doesn't use any of the ingredients, and on top of it, doesn't even look like my food. Why would you think it's the same thing? Oh, because I like the name. You like the name. That doesn't make it the same. That's Reform Judaism. Reform Judaism doesn't look like real Judaism, doesn't keep real Judaism, doesn't believe in the Torah, doesn't believe that the Torah is from God, doesn't believe that God is who He is, doesn't observe the laws of the Torah. In so many words, it doesn't have any of the ingredients of Judaism, aside from just simply calling itself Judaism. Even their rabbis are not Jewish many times. In fact, their rabbis many times are not Jewish. They're not even males. They're females. So if you're asking, why isn't Reform considered Judaism? That's because it is not Jewish. Reform Judaism is not Jewish. It's a different religion that calls itself Judaism. If you want Judaism, Judaism is following what the Torah says, not reforming it. And if you follow the Torah, and then you convert according to the rules of the Torah, then you can become Jewish. BeEzrat HaShem, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will answer all of our prayers and bring Talia Bat Sarah a refuah shlema, refuat hanefesh, refuat haguf, a achlama me'era to her, to her dear mother. BeEzrat HaShem, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will continue to bring blessings to Am Yisrael, blessings of protection. Hold on a second. Aye. Okay, we're going to have to continue the shiur. More questions. More Torah. Who has ascended into heaven and descended? The Gemara says that some Chachamim went up to Shemayim and came down. One of them was Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva went up, so what's there? There were also 9 righteous people that went into Gan Eden alive. One of them was Eliezer, the servant of Avraham Avinu. Also, the Serach bat Asher, Serach, the daughter of Asher, also entered Gan Eden. Batya bat Paro, Batya, the daughter of Paro, the one that rescued Moshe Rabbeinu, she also got into Gan Eden alive. You also have Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. He also went into Gan Eden alive. So we have multiple people that went there alive, some that went and came back, reported what they saw, and even ones that went and saw what happened in Gehenom. As you'll see from the film Gehenom, that Moshe Rabbeinu and the prophet Isaiah and also Eliyahu Navi all reported what they saw in Gehenom. In fact, Eliyahu Navi used to give people a tour of Gan Eden and Gehenom. Rabbi, are you allowed to have a tattoo, or is it against the Jewish religion? It's against the Torah. You're not allowed to tattoo your body. What if somebody wants to have 4 wives like the Arabs? Is it allowed according to the Jewish religion? According to the Torah, it's allowed to have a wife, a second wife, or third wife, or fourth wife, as long as the first wife agrees. But in today's world, the vast majority of society cannot even handle 1 wife. Needless to say, a wife that would agree for a second wife. Usually in the Muslim world or the parts of Christianity where they are polygamists, it's not because the wife allows a second wife, but rather because they don't have a choice. In Judaism, when you sign a ketubah, you're promising the first wife certain things. And if those things are threatened by a second wife, she can elect for you not to have a second wife. So it's not just to go do whatever you want, and that's why it's not done anymore, at least by the vast majority of Jews around the world. But I would first recommend that you marry one woman, and then you will be able to answer that question yourself. In regards to anti-Semitism, why did Achashverosh change his opinion about Am Yisrael when he heard Esther Malka, since the beginning employed with Haman to destroy Am Yisrael? Who said he changed his opinion? Achashverosh hated the Jewish people no less than Haman, but he also loved himself. And therefore, when he saw that Haman is really undermining him and really doing things in order to take the kinghood from him, in so many words, Haman was the one that convinced him to kill his first wife. Haman is also the one that said that he wants to kill the Jews, which means he wanted to kill his second wife. So Haman was undermining him, and therefore this hurt the ego of Achashverosh, and Achashverosh had to destroy him. It wasn't because he became a Jewish lover. It wasn't because of that. HaKadosh Baruch Hu give Talia bat Sarah Refuah Shlema. I'm getting a picture as we speak of her. She underwent a surgery. There was a serious life risk, and Baruch Hashem, she's better. She completed the surgery, but she's going to have to stay in the hospital. Be'ezrat Hashem, not for long, but we're going to need to continue praying for more miracles, for more good, and for Hashem to have mercy on us and on Klal Yisrael, because when all of the energy and resources are used on that, then it's more difficult to make the time to learn and teach Torah. Even though the Rambam paskins that a person has to learn Torah no matter what, certainly we continue learning, our friend continues learning, but it becomes more difficult to learn and teach on the same scale. So if not for our sake, for the sake of Am Yisrael and all the people that want to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we plead with Hashem to please give Refuah Shlema to Talia and to all of Am Yisrael, BeEzrat Hashem, so we can all learn Torah and serve Him and do tshuva. Okay, last question, Rabotai. We're almost going on 3 hours. I think we've done sufficient enough. We've completed the surgery, and now we just simply need to continue praying. Does Erev Av still exist today? Of course it exists today. In fact, according to Rabbi Chaim Volozhin, based on the teachings of the Zohar from Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, the vast majority of the Jewish leaders are Erev Rav, at the generation before Mashiach. Vast majority, not even just do they exist. They're unfortunately the majority in leadership, not just regular people. Okay, Rabotai, I thank you very much for learning with us, and BeEzrat Hashem for elevating HaKadosh Baruch Hu's name even further, learning more about His Torah. BeEzrat Hashem, hopefully inspiring more people to do tshuva, more people to connect to Hashem. BeEzrat Hashem, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will have more mercy on His servants, that we're able to continue teaching, continue learning, continue doing His will and getting others to do the same. Anyone that wants to do some of the other things that we discussed, learn Torah, get other people to learn Torah. Share this lecture, share it after we publicize it on YouTube and on other social media. Share the other lectures. Donate on the website, bhtorah.org or BeEzrat.org, or you could donate on our Facebook page or on the YouTube page. In so many words, do something good to help us publicize more Torah, and do something for the sake of Am Yisrael. Do something to connect to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and BeEzrat HaShem, we will all succeed. Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Mevorach. Thank you very much for learning with me. Kol Tov.